Why do you make art?
I make art really because I don't think I can stop making art. I've always made art, apart from when my children were small, but as soon as they reached a certain age, it kind of welled up, and I began making again, and it's just not something you can leave behind. It might be something you want to leave behind, but it's not something you can.
What does it mean to you?
I'm not sure if it makes me happy. I do ask myself that sometimes, but it does make me very happy to be in the studio. I know that. Just the whole feel of the place, just the smell as you go in, or the smell, when you go into an art college, of the materials and everything, just makes me feel at home.
What ideas, interests or concepts inspire your work?
I had some very nice support that helped me apply for an Arts Council grant, which I got, and that pushed me into new media as well, into video, which I hadn't done before. And I just spent the time looking at, visiting exhibitions, speaking to curators, looking at what work was out there, because I hadn't done that for a long time. And I began with what I knew, which was nighttime. I started that as the focus of the work and began to interview other people about nighttime, not necessarily mothers, but different women of different ages, and made a video piece which then kind of kick-started a lot of work, because I do sort of installation and work with objects as well. And it is, it's sort of grown. That moved into focusing on the master bedroom, which is a rather dilapidated space in our house. I kind of excavated that like an archaeological dig, really, and both sort of practically. I did a latex cast of the Artex on the ceiling, and also sort of psychologically and sort of metaphysically as well. And that was obviously quite a contained thing, or it began as quite a contained thing, and I think that was necessary because of the very sort of contained world that I'd lived in for quite a while. But that sort of broadened out into, because I'm quite active on social media, into taking narratives online and exploring that, and exploring relationships in a sort of virtual world, and everything has sort of grown from the thing before, which is just naturally what happens, really. And a lot of the work is conceptual, but on the other hand, it's very process and material based as well. So,
what materials do you particularly enjoy working?
Well, I'm really. It's a really silly choice as an artist, but I've always liked very fragile materials and materials with very little value. So that requires an awful lot of experimentation. 99% of it gets chucked out because it doesn't work. It either doesn't set, or it doesn't, do what I expect it to, or it doesn't hold up. So things like cotton wool, sellotape, wax and latex, I suppose. Quite a few materials that are liquid and then solidify. Household sort of emulsion, cling film, gloss paint. A lot of the substances that have meaning for me, actually, that come from perhaps my childhood, like the like the high gloss windowsills, I used to chew on with my parents, and things like that, and the heavily varnished, church pews that I also used to chew on. I did a lot of chewing when we were meant to be praying as a child. But yeah, a lot of liquids that solidify and sort of seal ideas, and just generally, I just love materials that you know, possibly have a fragility and a vulnerability and may not stay with us for long, which is problematic when you're exhibiting and, you know, if you're ever hoping to sell things, but I still can't really move away from those. So.
It's very characterful. I love it. What do you think your art practice says about you?
The last person I exhibited with is an artist that I really admire. She did say, why are you always the voyeur? Why are you the outsider looking in? And sort of, it's quite a private world in a way, and that's quite true actually. And I think that particularly in video work, which has become really important to me, it gives you the opportunity to sort of look in and on other people's lives or other scenarios. Yeah, so it's quite quiet work, I would say, and quite personal, sometimes quite, what's the word? It wouldn't be humorous, but it's making light maybe of something more serious. I'm really interested in the idiosyncrasies of that, you know, of everyday life really, and sort of pulling those out. And I do a lot of work in education and you know, with different community groups. So I work with some homeless men and you know, lots of different types of groups and different age groups, and which is quite often, you know, discarded as something, you know, kind of critically acclaimed artists shouldn't possibly be doing, or, you know, it's not valued as much. And I think there's incredible amount of value in making, whether you're a professional or whether you're an amateur. And I shape whatever, I mean, I see my two things as very distinct, so my own work is very separate, and I'm not an artist that particularly runs participatory projects where I take my work and you know, involve other people. And that's because the issues that I like to deal with, sometimes they're quite private, or they're quite controversial or subversive, and they're not appropriate for other groups. So I shape projects to suit the groups themselves, and quite separate those two things. I mean, I did a project last year, Sister Tricks, where I had to make a film with the Port Down research laboratories into defence and chemical and biological defence, and people said, well, that's really far from what you normally do, you know. And I suppose it was, to me it wasn't entirely, because it is quite a closed and cordoned off place, and very, very private and very secretive. So in a way it was actually, those were areas that I was working in anyway, on these internet conversations I was having with people. And it very much involves social media, because there's so much out there online of people suspicious of what goes on in that place, and films that they've made and whatnot. So that was a whole new area that I moved into, and I think artists are just constantly interested in whatever is presented to them and finding areas of interest. So I found it quite easy to move into another area actually, because again, you know, you just find more fascination.
What's your definition of success?
I actually am really driven.
Are you?
I am, but I'm driven by space actually. Well, my kind of ambitions are always to find the right space, or make the right space, make the right work for the right space, which is my sort of ultimate goal. And I don't know about you, but you know, I'm never totally satisfied with work that I've done. But yeah, so it's not really monetary success, so that'd be lovely, or even critical success, although that also would be really nice. But it's personal feeling that I've worked with a space and it's successful, and you know when work's successful when it's not.
Yeah.
You just got feeling.
Good. Yeah. I love your answers.